Welcome. I'm Daniel, and I'm one of the senior mentors over at the DRI Veteran Outreach Program. I also sit on the board that grants the scholarships. For a 9-to-5, though, I work for Ryan Specialty. I was previously working as a auditor for CVS Health and 20 years of military service. We're going to cover a little bit of things differently than a regular resume session here. This isn't normal BC resumes. This is or normal resume. This is BC resumes. We're not going to cover those finite details of a resume. We're going to say what's specific to a BC resume, so you get those juices flowing in your head and think about what we want to do in our own resumes. Take it back. I'll give you a couple of resources as well, and you can put that in your kit and start crafting and be excellent, competitive in the market. That's what we're trying to shoot for, and make sure you're targeting the right audiences. So we'll cover a couple things like branding, some filler stuff that maybe you can consider whether you want it or not, or if you need a filler or not, titles, the bullets, and education and certifications. Then we'll open it up for questions, but I think given the topic, it's probably something we might go a little interactive on, so we might have a little less time for questions if the interactive part gets too interactive. So feel free, if you have a question mid-session, chime in, no problem. We can address it right on the spot. We'll kind of do this a bit informal, as opposed to the normal talk questions at the end. But yeah, once again, so I have 20 years of Army service. I was a Sergeant First Class, just a regular old MI and logistician. You wouldn't really think those things intersect with BC, but I just paid a lot of attention in Alan's class and became a subject matter expert right off the how I can translate what I've done into that. Now, I did do a bit of like ITDR with ComSec and some of those cybersecurity domains, and as well as did a bit of anti-terrorism officer, which is very coup heavy. So I did do a lot of BC, and I translated that into my stuff. But I could show you some ideas that how you can do the same thing with your experience and make your military experience translate over to that service experience. So you can start winning those jobs like CVS and Ryan Specialty. I'm a program engineer. It's just like I'm a contractor. I wanted to have a gap between my military and go right into director roles, but it just was, the market was pretty dicey when I went there. So Ryan Specialty opened up the doors, and I really like it there. So I've kind of set my hat for a while, and as long as there's an opening here and they keep me, I'm going to probably stay with Ryan. It's a great company. But insurance company, specialty insurance, kind of like Lloyd's of London, insuring those people that can't get insurance elsewhere. But that's what I do on a day-to-day, engage with those business units and build resilient plans for them. So let's talk about resumes, right? What this class is not, right? Everyone has an opinion on resumes. You're probably right, you're probably wrong. It's really up to you, that in person. When you're looking at a resume, what do you want to communicate to the hiring manager, to the team that's reviewing it, to the recruiters? Who is a general resume? Are you trying to cast this wide net, or are you trying to apply to a specific role? Everyone has a crazy opinion. Font size this, third person, present tense, past tense, all that. They're thinking these things, where your education should go. It doesn't matter. Content matters. So we look at the fact side. What's factual to BC? What do they care about in BC? If I'm going to apply to a BC job or even an ITDR job, crisis management, anything that has that scope of business continuity, what you've been trained on, what we do in this mentorship program, that's what we're looking at. That's the facts. So we're not looking at opinions, crafting the resume and how it should look all pretty. We're just looking at what we want to do. So one of those things I think is really capital is, if you look at, I'm a business continuity professional. I'm going to be engaging with the CEOs or the senior VPs. So I got to talk very concise. Think about, you're at a command and staff, one of those senior meetings, battalion level or brigade level executive officer, and you start going low level into something. So if I start talking about how each individual process works, I'm going to bore their socks off, and they're going to cut me short, and I won't get what I want out of that meeting. I won't get my message across. It's the same thing if your resume. You need to be short and concise and communicate in that professional language that shows them that you do that in the day-to-day. So everything that you look at your resume, when I get to the resume side and I'm talking to hiring managers or the functional team, they always say, hey, your resume was really clear and concise. I could see exactly what you were, and that was attractive to them. So they liked it. It wasn't all over the place. It wasn't low level. I go high level with everything. We'll talk about that a little bit in the bullet construction. But it's all about that target audience, right? Who I want to capture. And then let's think about VC managers. They are specific as all get out. You have no idea the comments I've heard from people in the market trying to get jobs and what they got from the hiring team. Like, we didn't choose you as our preference because we felt you had so much crisis management that you would get bored doing VC. So if you're going to a VC job and you got crisis management, they don't say crisis manager on there at all, I would just get rid of your resume because it does take away. You want to be this perfect fit, exactly what they want. Same thing with DR. If I say DR, 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 and I'm applying to a VC job and they don't say anything about DR, they're probably going to be like, I don't want this DR guy over here trying to mix us with DR. I actually had, when I was applying for Ryan, they didn't want DR. They absolutely didn't want DR because DR was getting confused with BC. So it was like a negative. I was fighting against the wall in all the sessions that I was interviewing about, hey, DR is cool, but I'm not tied to it. I just know it. I'm the person that you want to talk to the nerds. I'm going to go talk to the nerds for you, understand what they want. And that resonated. But think about those things when you're in that session, crafting your targeted resume. Who are you targeting? And what are you limiting yourself to on a specific resume? Not general, but general. I want to cast that wide net, get everyone. But that's the kind of factual stuff we're going to identify in this session. So we'll go ahead and pop over. Let's talk about BC versus the normal resume. If you're a BC, you are a manager, subject matter expert, practitioner, professional. You are business continuity, right? Or you're DR. You are a specific career set. In a normal resume, you're trying to attract everything. You're trying to say, I can lead people, I can lead processes. As a manager of business continuity, you're usually an individual contributor. You're a leader of functions, not people. So sometimes in an interview, they're going to say, hey, are you okay with not having people under you? And you're probably saying, heck yes. Because you're tired of all that, leading tons and tons of people. But maybe you really love leading people, and BC might not be the job for you because it's more about leading people that don't want to be led. They don't want to see you in their office because you're not the most important thing in their day. You're trying to lead those functions and engage them and get that buy-in from there. So it's a different style of leadership that you need to communicate in your BC resume versus in a normal resume. You're trying to lead people and show like, I led 5,000 people, or I led 500 people in this organization and got all these amazing results. It's functions now instead of people. So okay, and chime in if you need. Just chime in, interrupt. No problem. We'll blaze through a couple of these slides. We'll slow down on some and speed up on some other ones. So bullets. When you're looking at your bullets and how I attract that role, it needs to be professional practice related. Because if I'm looking at a bullet and I say I did, say I ran a policy program for an Army commander, and it was the family care program, right? Family care program is a business continuity plan. I'm not going to say I ran the family care program. I'm going to say I ran a business continuity program. High level. I keep it up at the top. I don't get low level and granular because they don't know what a family care plan is. They don't care what a family care plan is. I don't say I did an anti-terrorism officer plan. I said I did a business continuity plan. And then I go into the professional practice. I say I identified, so maybe I use Carver or MSharp for my risk metrics, where I identified how we categorize and find those criticalities. But instead, I'm just going to say I defined the risk methods, the risk management methodology to prioritize and do business impact analysis. So, and I worked with my executive leaders, the steering committee, I got that buy-in. I'm going to use those key words that you find in the professional practices. And if you don't know where to find your professional practices, go to DRI's website, go into resources, and then there'll be a 2023 professional practices PDF. You download that, look through it. When you're crafting your resume bullets, you're going to use that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So specific hard skills. And when I'm comparing bullets to the other side, If I'm in a general resume for a non-BC, I'm trying to show them I do everything. I want to show them I can run all the functions. I'm going to fill so many job roles. So I'm really trying to wow and pizzazz them. They don't want that in BC land. They want you to be exactly what they want. So look carefully at what roles they're asking for. As we discussed earlier, it could be a negative if you say mention crisis management and they don't want crisis management. Maybe they had a bad experience with a crisis manager and now they don't even want to see that anymore. So they took it off their role resume. They're so specific, it's insane. And this is coming from experience. I've had hundreds of interviews so far and really learned a lot of lessons out of it. I'm passing on to you right now in your resume crafting. So hard skills and soft skills. BC, your hard skills, they're all BC's hard skills. I'll list you a couple of them, but they are of a specific set that you want to deal with. And they're usually linked to something out of that resume posting, that role posting. Soft skills, let's talk about all this software that we use, right? Fusion, Risk Connect, CL360. Has anyone in here ever used an enterprise resource planning tool like a training management system, a transportation management system, something that's database and graphically intense? Anyone use that?
Yeah.
You've used business continuity software then. It's the same thing. You jump on that thing for 5 seconds, you click a couple of buttons, and you now know how to do it. You understand business continuity principles. You are certified CBCP. You know what needs to go into a BC plan. That tool just helps you put it together. So if someone asks you, do you know Fusion? You know Fusion. It takes 5 seconds to learn it. Even if I had Fusion on my company and you had used Fusion at a different company, our version of Fusion is going to be different because I'm going to customize the hell out of mine. I'm going to get rid of everything I don't care about. So it's not going to be the same product. So you know Fusion, you know CL360, you know Risk Connect, you know Infinite Blue, BCIC, you know them all. Continuity Logic, which is CL360 now. So soft skills, if you see they need that, you have it. You've done it. Be confident in it. You've used those systems. Simple as that. And you don't. It's really easy to get into those things. Diverse skills, right? I don't want to say I did like leadership and I did presentations, all these things. That's the other side of the house. BC is very specific. We don't want to see that stuff. We don't want to see leadership. We want to see those other things. They actually take away when the hiring managers look at it. Hey, maybe I don't want that in my. I want someone that's just a doer. I want someone that's a subject matter expert and is going to stay in their own lane. They're not going to come over here and try to lead my section for me. So think about that when you're looking at it, that specificity that they're looking for. So you're a precise match for that opening, right? Versus on the normal resume, you're just looking to prove your value to the organization and show how many seats you can fill with your one spot. This is a bit opinionated on this slide too, but I'm talking from experience that I've been in resume sessions with the hiring manager and they talked about these specific things. Or I've talked with people that were hiring managers. I've talked with people that went through those problems, that their struggles that they've had and feedback. And this is the things that I'm sharing with you. So slightly opinionated, but it's good to know. And it doesn't hurt to be specific to that role. All right. Is this coming in a little too blurry for everyone? No, it's good. All right.
This is fine.
I'm going to, if you want, I will provide, and actually I can probably upload it real quick into the chat. I'm going to give you guys some items. So let's see if I can pull it from my computer real quick. That didn't work. All right, we won't do that. I was going to give you some items. I'll add it later. You can go back and you can see it. Or if you want, you can email me, DLOUG002@gmail. Just look where you got the request from this. I'll email you. I'll also drop it in the video recording, a sample resume. It's basically what you're looking at that I cut from here. And I'll put the professional practices in there. Well, I'll put my slides in there. But this is a very good, clear, crisp format. I think it aligns well to military specifics, like making critical decisions under ambiguous situations, or as you know it as in the absence of orders, right? That is the corporate speak for that. So I've translated a lot of these things in a professional summary. The only thing you need to change is your top. So like if you're ABCP, change to CBCP. That right there is branding. CBCP, that's your brand. Senior business continuity professional. And then here's my brand. And you can steal my brand. Certified, you can have it. I don't care. Passionate. I changed my brand from tech savvy, which didn't resonate well with the recruiters because it seemed like I was a bit too like, I'm too awesome for you. You should hire me. Now it's I'm passionate. They say, man, I got to get this guy in my office working for me because he's going to want to be here every day. So I'm passionate about what I do. I am passionate about BC. I really love it. But that's the brand right there. And it's an attractive brand, passionate about designing these things. It will resonate well with any culture of a company that you run across is going to want someone that's passionate to be there at their office. I don't think there's going to be one that say, I want people that don't like to be here at work today, and I got to deal with them every day. So I recommend adding that into your branding. And I get a lot of feedback too. When I'm in the interviews, they say, oh yeah, I hired you because you were passionate, or I hired this person because they were passionate. That's the feedback that it's very attractive, and hiring managers love that stuff. They eat it up. When we get to the next part though, you got to break down this business continuity, crisis management, physical security, make that your flavor, because you don't want to market something you're not going to be able to do. And you got to tailor that to the role, because I don't want to give them crisis management when they don't want crisis management. They think I'm going to get bored. Interesting enough, right? But enterprise resiliency is a hodgepodge of all those things. So maybe they aren't looking for enterprise resiliency. Maybe they're looking for just BC. You can change it to BC. But this is a blanket summary. It's where you tell that hiring manager what you want to do with your life as a BC. So they know I'm not going to call this person up to be a project manager. Do you see project management over it at all? Nothing. You don't even see program management. It's BC. I'm communicating. This is call me about BC. Don't call me about anything else. Same with those skills at the bottom. Those are all BC skills. I highlighted ITDR because that specific skill is a skill that you might not have or you might have. ITDR, you can change that out with anything you want that's BC related.
And Daniel, I could also add to the ITDR piece, under new DORA standards in the financial industry over in the UK, that's the new standard that's coming over here. Now we're talking about operation resilience. So don't be afraid to use the word operation resilience. And then also you could just kind of in parens use like ITDR, because it's really kind of one and the same. There's just some minor differences between the two.
Yeah, very heavy in the banking sector, operational resilience. I've seen that. Operational risk, very specific. Be cautious when you're looking at risk management. Risk management is very different from BC. If you want to know what the differences are, you can hit me offline and I can tell you the very subtle nuances of how difficult it is to talk to an ERM and explain BIA from a BC side, because they're looking in the now, we're looking at everything's already happened, we're just trying to fix it. So there's a big disconnect between risk and BC, and I can help you bridge that if you need.
And Daniel, before you,
Yes.
this is
I'll
Trish,
flip
if you
back.
go back a slide, for anybody, because I hire, right, at Sentinel, or I hire team members. If you have not, whether you have your associates or you're fully certified business continuity, if you put enterprise risk or any risk, I am going to ask you specific questions. And as soon as you trip up on that, you are no longer in the pool. And the reason is that at the DRI level, there is actually a certified risk management professional, which I am. So, don't hodgepodge that kind of thing, saying, well, I look at, no, it is a completely different, it's, risk tolerance, it's all hazard, it's, so they just kind of stay away from that unless you really have done it. And I always say when I introduce myself to my clients, because of my military background, I did operational resilience when operational resilience wasn't cool. So always use the words operational resilience, because everybody coming out of the military has done a flavor of operational resilience. So Just my additional to that.
Hey, Trish, if I can take,
Yeah.
of your 2 cents, can we take another 1 cent of it? What are your thoughts on crisis communications versus crisis management?
So crisis communication, crisis communication is the person who is going to stand or has stood in front of the cameras. If you have never done that, if you have never written a crisis management plan, if somebody else handed you the plan and you uploaded into Infinite Blue, BCIC, or whatever application, you have not done crisis management. Crisis management is that person who's going to be up in front of the cameras, all right? And so don't put it there because it'll be an expectation. And then I always tell people, go watch the first 3.5 hours of Uvalde, and how you want to talk about, I mean, there was failures across the board, but that was a failure in crisis management.
And they bring up really good points about when you look at these skills and knowing what you put down. When I look at crisis communication too, I also look at if you're looking at your who to call, maybe I have a specific escalation category. I'm not going to wake up the boss's boss when these things spark off there. And then who's going to be the person that talks to the press? There's a lot of different unique things. You need to be able to speak these from experience and have stories that you can tell about these where you've employed these skills, because that also helps as well. And ChatGPT will help you craft your story into a very meticulous discipline of, so say if I had a crisis management, maybe I had a missing soldier, right? And I say, hey, GPT, tell me about how I use crisis management to go after this missing soldier. Then I start thinking, oh, I did this, that. And then I have a structure that looks really good on the way that it should be done from a formalized structure. Usually be like a female line when you talk about that.
Well,
and use the RACI matrix. Say, I understand the roles and responsibilities. Because I've had, and once again, I've been doing this probably longer than y'all have been born, but well, except for Jerry. But I've had young whippersnappers come in and try to tell me they've done stuff, and I am brutal. I will tear you apart, but I am also come from I was a naval officer, so that BS doesn't really fly. So, but if you can tie a story to it, if you can say, yeah, you know what, I was in, XYZ, Providence, and we had 4 troops missing. Now you may be talking to a business person, and the business person will think when they hear the word troops, they think mass, right? They're not thinking 4 bodies at all. And say, yeah, what they were missing, and here's what happened. And I alerted these people, and I was instrumental in ensuring that proper clearance, et cetera, whatever you did. But use the word I ensured, I provided. Remember, it's always the one thing we're bad at is that we are really bad at selling ourselves when we're in an interview. And talk it up, talk yourself up. As much as we're told not, we're not supposed to be, we're not supposed to brag, right? We've been taught this. This is the time you need to brag, because if it comes down to you and some Ivy League kid, they're going to take the Ivy League kid unless you can tell them what you did. Now, I won't do it, but, I lean towards the military more often than not.
So I want to say that the recce is really important to consider too, because you have responsible, accountable, informed. So I put it backwards, but those are the when you look at that communication matrix, that's a very effective communication matrix, and you can put some timetables to it. So you can build that out. It's things, products to work on, but that's something to consider when you put those skills or you put this information in your professional summary. Be able to talk the talk when you get in that interview. And say you get in an interview and you bomb it, right? Go back to GPT. Hey, how should I have answered that question? What kind of scenario? So you can have continuous improvement on your own stuff. So let's talk about filler now. And thank you everyone for the feed in that one. So filler, we're talking Infinite Blue, Risk Connect, these ones right here. It's filler if they didn't ask for it. It's filler if they didn't ask for it. Maybe I put in here ISO 22301 or ISO 27031, like is the DR one. But looking at these, this is area where you can add it. It could be good if they need it. And that's this, I'm putting this under my soft skills as additional stuff to say, I know how to do this. And you might come back and pepper it in to where you've used it in practical applications. But this part right here, high level attributes and resiliency ethics. If I've got a big blank space and now like this spot needs to be filled and I want to have a 1 page, so I get rid of this, or I got 2-page mandatory, I need to have 2 pages to fill what I want to put to the hiring manager. I can put this in there and it doesn't take too much value away. And maybe I can change and do some wording on here to craft and catch some of their roles and responsibilities. But it is filler. It's not necessary. It can add value and it can look cool, but it's not an important piece. So when you see that on the sample one, know that that's filler. Same with professional organizations. If you're listed professional organizations, it's there if you have a big blank spot and you don't want it to look ugly. It doesn't add any value to your hiring, right? None of this does. Except for, I would say maybe that those soft skills that they're asking for it. And let's look at some filler bullets. So if I'm crafting my bullet, right? And I said I was selected from my peers to do this awesome job or be this awesome role. You didn't do it. Somebody else did that. That is filler. That is a fluffer bullet. So don't put selected amongst. When we talk about things that you did and how that impacted the organization, it's a big no on making those things, being selected, or it sounds cool that you were the best of the best, but really doesn't communicate anything to the hiring manager that you're something extra or you're going to add value to them, because who knows if you're still going to be the best of the best when you get to that next place. It's not something you did though. All right, titles. This is where it can get important. If I am applying for a specialist role or an analyst role, say I want to be a contractor, and I come at them heavy with titles that are like senior director or director or principal or leader, I'm not going to get the job. They don't want to pay for you. They don't want to deal with someone that's going to be bored at work. So you're not going to get the job. Match your titles to the job role you're applying for. You might need to dumb yourself down a little bit if you want to get to a manager role. If you want to be a senior manager, go ahead and go with those high-level senior titles, but match it up. Now, we can talk about some operational resilience. We were talking about operational resilience. I would stray away from, unless you read the job role and it says enterprise risk management, and maybe the company just didn't know what enterprise risk management was, and they listed it up as a BC role, and you could tell it was definitely BC. Like say they were looking for a CBCP to fill it. You might kind of craft over to match what they are saying, because sometimes companies get confused with what they call business continuity or resiliency. So you got to look at it and craft your titles to match what matches what they're looking for. But commonly called enterprise resiliency, which is more of a mixture, a hodgepodge of disciplines inside the business continuity space. So they're probably mixing in some crisis management, incident response. They're looking at the current, the now, and the future. The global risk and resilience has been a pretty common one in the major corporations. You got to think some companies are small. They don't have enterprise products, so that's maybe just one business unit or one business function. But if they're an enterprise product like CVS, they're going to be looking at something to try to show that enterpriseness there, or global when they talk about their programs. In the military, you can easily match enterprise. A business unit is a battalion, brigade. A function could be a company or a section like a S1, S2, S3. And then those critical processes, you know what those are.
And I'll just add, if I may, when you talk about global risk and resilience, when you see that title and they're advertising for that position, understand that this is working outside of the country, right? You may have like offices in the UK or India or other countries. And so just understand that, your title and your position may have to be very flexible. Just understand that there could be some 3 a.m. meetings, stuff like that. So you have to be engaged and be willing to do that. Just wanted to add that caveat there.
But definitely match your progression, right? So don't go director, director, director. You know, you might want to build yourself up a little bit. Think about your military career. Maybe you were a specialist, an engineer, architect, something cool title like that. And then you're building into where you became and so let's talk about titles too. Maybe I was a commander, right? I was a sergeant first class. So I was operations NCO, things like that. Operations NCO, I ran the S3. It was cool. But it wasn't all business continuity, right? I'm in the military. I have 6 different jobs. I was the anti-terrorism officer. So instead of highlighting that I was the operations manager, I highlighted that I am the director of business continuity because I was directing business continuity for an entire business unit and all the sub-business units under that. So I put that in like that. I just didn't hone in on half of the things I did. I only honed in on what was business continuity specific. So you're not fudging details if you talk about yourself as a business continuity professional manager, director, whatever you want to be, as long as you did some business continuity in that space. And in the military, we have so many different jobs, so it's easy to find that. And Vernon has dropped. See you later, Vernon. Or sorry, Jerry. It's good having you on. And thanks for your feedback. Way too much we, us, and team. You want to elaborate on that one?
Yeah, that was just piggybacking on a few minutes ago. We were talking about not being really good at selling ourselves in an interview. Great at saying, my team, we did that. A lot of us. No, if you're in an interview, it's I did that.
Yeah.
Not my team did it. Or maybe I directed my team. I led my team, but that's about as inclusive as you should get it. Your team didn't do it. You did it. It's not we, it's not us. That's a very not military way to think, but you're not selling us, you're selling you to that interviewer. So
think about your
a long time to kind of get over, and I still probably slip occasionally, but I'm much better at it now than I started out.
You're the boss, right? So if you're the boss and your underlings did some stuff for you, you did that stuff. So you think about that in your actual resume. That's important.
Yeah,
all right, we're gonna. So let's talk about crafting this. Oh yeah, let's talk about SVP. So Keith he lives the Bankland, which is awesome. Because if we talk about those titles, senior vice president, associate vice president, all these high level titles in the banking industry are very inflated. They usually align to say a director or a senior manager. But if you have to really measure it up, look at the roles, look at the level of responsibilities and what's encompassed in that to show what is SVP. If you're going to say you're SVP, maybe your SVP in the banking is different than SVP in the manufacturing sector. So you got to look at those the holistic nature of that role and what all boils into that. But they're gonna know. They're gonna have had people come across, be like, I'm the awesomest SVP. But maybe you don't want to do that when you're going from the banking to the other sector. You might not want to overinflate yourself if you're trying to get that senior role and cross over. Okay, so here's the craft of the bullets. I want to highlight down at the bottom first. So if you don't know how to classify yourself or how to define your title or a bullet or something, look at these prompts with ChatGPT. This is how you build ideas. I didn't build the bullet itself. I gave myself 2 ideas out of how to build a bullet by saying provide a 2-line description. And I gave it in the past tense, the resume standardized format, right? And then I took that and I said how to impact the organization. And it gave me 2 more bullets. Now I took all 4 bullets, smashed it together and made 2 really nice cohesive lines that captures what I want to say about myself and how I did that role. And it might even break down into 1 line, like develops and executes comprehensive plans to mitigate diverse disruptions, ensuring organization-wide resilience. It's just something short, sweet. What a business manager does, a business continuity manager. You pick your flavor. What you want to do. That's how you're going to communicate yourself. But try to look at what you did, how you did it, and how it impacted the organization. That's how you're going to get the most that impact side of it, what you did that added value to the organization. That's what's going to get them on the phone calling you. Because if I see someone that goes out and they're always improving something, they're always getting results, making awesome stuff for the organization and changing things. That's that executive level doer. That's that person that sees strategically, that builds something for the organization. And that's the person that they're going to call. I want to get that person here to do that for me. So get them excited by your impact, not by your what you did, how you did it. Talk about what you did, how you did it, very clear and concise, but wow them with that impact. So I have this structure right here. The reason I'm pitching this structure, if you send your resume to let's say Workday or any of those platforms that are processing resumes for applications, this is going to grab this and it's going to cut and paste it. You don't have to do anything. You got the business name. It's going to find it there. It's got your title, short and sweet, where you did it, state and city, right? And then the month is all the way spelled out and the year is always filled out. And then to present, it will grab this, boom, you don't have to do that. Now, I would say you might want to lowercase the business name and your name, because sometimes some different engines, they don't like the all capitals, but some are okay with it. So it's, up to you if you want it for the flair and to have that cool look. It's a small change you have to do when you're doing automated processes, but at least you don't have to type Department of Defense 6,000 times, because that gets annoying, right? And but yeah, let's go back into it. So that title, boom, there, very clear and concise what you did, how you did it. Then you have a 2-line summary of how you worked that position as a whole, as a business continuity manager. What did you do? How did you do it? And what did it do for the organization? 2 lines most. If you go more than 2 lines, they're not reading that 3rd line. They're going to get bored, and you're not looking concise. You're looking very wordy. You're not the person I want in my board meeting, right? Same thing for your bullets. If I have more than 6 bullets, you may seem cool, but they're not going to read those 6 bullets. Anything past 6 is too much. And anything more than 2 lines is too long. It's not concise enough. So you really got to constrain yourself to make sure you fit in that window. Hiring managers are going to love you for that if you do it. And go with the most prominent first down if you can. So you want to wow them right off the bat, because they might not get to line 6 if they get bored early. It's a fishing game, right? You gotta laugh them in, hook them on the line, and then you start reeling them in, and maybe you get them to all 6 of those things. But it's all about excitement with that impact and communicating what you did. So when I look at what I did, right, I pull up the professional practice and I say, professional practice 1, program management initiation, right? I go in there and I read program management initiation, and then I craft a bullet from program management initiation. I identified the regulatory need for a business continuity program, and then I got all the key players together. I assigned them roles. We developed a steering committee. We established funding requirements for the program and got buy-in. Boom, line 1, that's what I did. And it impacted the organization this way. Then I go down to the next one. I have my risk, right? So I work with the enterprise risk management department to define the risk appetite. I'm working with cross functions now, right? And I standardized our methodology to assess qualitative and quantitative business impact analysis. That's direct from the professional practice, but it's what I do every time I go into an organization, because it's the most important thing. Use products that are already there, right? So you could take directly from the professional practices. You keep it high level. Don't go low level. Don't say I went to the S2 and I asked S2 how they do this and that. They don't care about S2. Just say I work with enterprise risk management or whoever, whatever section. Keep it very high level. And I developed a risk strategy. I didn't use Carver or M-Sharp. I just developed a risk appetite and standardized methodology, right?
Daniel?
Keep it simple and sweet. Yes.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm not just disagreeing with anything, but my thing is that when you get asked the questions, most people will ask, well, what kind of methodology did you use?
No.
What kind of, tell me how you went through your methodology. If you don't understand the methodology, then you're going to, just like what Trish says, I got you in the risk. They're going to know that you don't understand your methodologies.
And that's true. That's resume. That's away from resume. That's more on the interview side of the house. So if I'm in the interview side of the house, I would wait until they ask me to clarify about how my methodology is.
Mhm.
I would first start out saying, this is my risk methodology, because if I go right to the low level, they might not care about that low level. And then I'm going to bore them with the details, but I will be ready to talk methodology. So if I was gonna say, I would say we used a method called Carver and M-sharp to, define these intersections. Or if I'm talking about Ryan specialty, we have a risk criteria, and we find out where the appetite hits the moderate scale, because we have a moderate risk appetite, and where it hits any of these categories, that's where we define our RTO. That's how I would look at it from that. But I always keep it high level, and I go low level only when asked, because you have to, especially in the resume too, because you want to keep it short and concise. You don't want to bore them. You want to keep them asking for more. They'll come to you if they're interested in it. And I've had people ask me, how do you do BIA? When I say I led BIA, and then I wow their socks off with how I do BIA. But I don't bring it at them in the beginning, because if I do, I'm going to bore them. I'm gonna lose their attention early by being too lengthy and not concise. It's just like if I'm going in to see the board CEO. When I go to see the board CEO, I'm going to say, hey, we are green on this, red on this, and yellow on that. And the board CEO will say, why are we red on that? And I'll say, oh, because of this, this, and that. Well, tell me more about why that's that way. And then I'll say, hey, Bob didn't do this. And okay, I'm going to go find Bob later. Thank you. But instead of me going into the board CEO and saying, hey, Bob did this really long thing, and because of that, now it's the upstream, the downstream dependencies, and blah 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 blah. And now the board CEO is like, hey, can you let's move on to the next person. Thank you for your time. And then I don't get to get Bob in the room with the CEO anymore, because the CEO got bored before I even got to getting my results what I wanted. So that's where the conciseness happens, and what it communicates. I try to do these triggers. I try to talk about how I establish a culture, because that's an important thing. Some buzzwords. So I establish a culture. Any organization I go to, I try to shift the mindset of resiliency to how they look at it and establish that culture. I talk about how I go about BIA, using other functions, bringing in. I talk about getting buy-in from business units. I use RETA heads for my when I engage business units. All those things, and I look at professional practices and use the professional practices as my high-level approach, because the professional practice is very high level. It doesn't talk about the way you go about actually doing that, and it'll make you effective in your communications. And then when you get to the tailor stage too, that's kind of where you can get so maybe if we go back to what Chris was saying about a definitive way of doing something, maybe that it's a civilian entity and they say, hey, we want someone that knows how to use the M-sharp Carver methodology. Then I would say I used M-sharp Carver in my ERM methodology when I engaged with the risk management side. I use that M-sharp Carver to build my BIAs and stuff. So it could be on the tailoring, but in the general resume, I'm going to leave it very high level and not specific.
And Daniel, when your resume is first going to hit, if it's in the corporate world, it's going to hit. You're not hitting the hiring manager, right? So yep. I provide to my recruiters. Here a very high level, and I always put trigger words, right? So I'm looking for something specific right now. I happen to be looking for somebody who can document BIAs. I mean, that is what I'm looking for. So I will put I in my job description or my trigger words, I didn't put business impact analysis, by the way. I put BIA, because if you have to ask me what a BIA is, you obviously have no clue. And this is just me being me. But I put in several words. So I ended up, I got a plethora of resumes. The first 5 didn't even really meet the standards. And then, then I'll go through and I'll say, okay, yeah, call this person in. I will then do from their resume. I won't even look at the resume at that point. I don't care what the resume says, because I've seen it. I brought you to talk to me. I'm not going to start triggering you and asking, specific words. Hey, specific things, how would you do your business impact analysis? Out of your business impact analysis, what do you think is the most important? And I won't say, oh, is an RTO more important than an RPO, is upstream, downstream, but I want you to tell me that so that I know that you understand how a BIA actually works.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's important to note. So when we're talking about tailoring here, you can see from the hiring manager perspective, it's who you're targeting, right? So if I'm targeting with a tailored resume, I want to speak to the person that's trying to hire me and what they need. So I want to craft those wording so that it catches their attention right away. And you got to look for those triggers, like she was saying. I understand what they're looking for. If the role looks like they're very heavy on something, you might want to be very heavy on that something.
I was going to ask that question because I have tailored my resume a couple of times because I'm not receiving a lot of feedback. And I don't know if it's like the keywords or what's going on, because it's like I would submit my resume and I know that it go through a system and then it goes to the recruiter maybe. But I guess I need help with that part because I'm not getting a lot of feedback from anyone.
I will say,
it's probably, Ronnie, it's probably not your resume. It's the company's, it's their words. That's why I said as a hiring manager, I provide trigger words. Otherwise, I can't think of who we used because they will scrub a resume before it even before it even gets to the recruiter. For example, one of the big things my company and I do not use this as a trigger, but other departments do. You need a 4-year degree, right? If you're going into our SOC or you're going into the NOC, you have to have 4-year degree, or you have to have this. I will ask for things like a CGIS. Do you have a CGIS clearance? Do you have DOD clearance? So those are different. So they have to always customize my pull, if you will. So depending upon how you're sending it, it's probably not your resume. It's the end. It's how they're cleaning, how they're cleaning house.
And it might not even be your tailor. You might be doing an awesome tailor. You might be doing the resume all right. You got to look at how many applications hit that window. If there's already 100 applications, you're probably not going to get in there, because out of those 100 applications, they maybe only need 20 fully qualified candidates, and they'll get that easily out of 100. So what you got to do is get a backdoor in, talk to people inside the organization, talk to those hiring managers, talk to those talent acquisition specialists, and say, hey, I'm a retired person. I'm awesome. Really excited about this position. Can you tell me more? Don't ask them for a job. Just say, hey, can you tell me more? Can you give me some mentorship? I really like your organization. I saw your business coaching program, and you have some exceptional experience. And they say, hey, we're talking, and we have a good time. There's that role open. Let me get your name in that hiring manager's hat, and then boom, you're in a job. So it's
exactly
getting
right.
past that barrier. It could be your resume says you live in wherever, and they're in, say, New York, and I'm in Georgia. Now, I don't want to move someone to New York. So you might consider putting you're in that area. If the military is going to move your move for you, so you don't have to pay for it, you could either say self-move, or you could just say you're in New York already. That's one way about it. But it's a lot of times I've had recruiters actually call me and say, hey, sorry, we didn't want you because you weren't in New York. So sometimes you just get round filed right away, just based off your own smaller things, and it might not be that, but you really got to cast that wide net, and you have to be very engaging with those hiring keys if you're not the first on the spot. I get on LinkedIn and I say jobs, CBCP or business continuity, and then I sort it by posted in the last 24 hours, because if you're not the first person in that stack, you're probably going to have trouble getting to be the first person in the stack. But if you get a lot more replies back, and you get those fresh 24-hour ones, unless they just can't find a good pool candidate. It's like Honeywell, they wanted so specific of a thing that they actually have been trying to apply for that. Like, people were trying to get that job for months, and then they were like, hey, we saw this guy's resume, he met all the things, let's get him in the door. But that was their struggle. Most places are not having a struggle finding really good BCs. So you got to be that first person in the shoot, and then wow the recruiters when you get in there.
Got it. I had started to
Hey,
feel
Daniel.
like, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Just a quick question in reference to that. So do you apply directly through LinkedIn to those jobs, or do you go to the company website and apply through the company website?
It's about 50-50. If the LinkedIn has the auto apply, I'm for sure going to use that because the company sites take forever to punch in all your stuff. I also use various recruiting agencies to kind of get my hat out there when I'm in the market, and that's helped out. That helped me with getting Ryan. I use Tech Systems. It was to kind of manage the contract. It's more of an agency versus they take a little off the top, but I just needed something immediately in the fill that would cover me and kind of build my resume out for the next big thing, which right now I'm working on getting in with the 2 different companies for some high level positions that pay well. Let's punch on here because I think we are almost to the last slide, but we're also almost out of time. This is an important piece. You could be overqualified for what you're looking for. Don't put ABCP and CBCP. It's either ABCP or CBCP, whichever one you are. Don't put both because if you want to be concise, right? PMP, I feel, is always relevant. I see it often being a preferred thing. It tells that you know program management and project management. PMP adds value all the time, every time. So if you have it, it's going to be good to put on there and keep on there, even if they don't ask for it. It's not gonna hurt you ever, from what I've seen. That's my opinion. But I feel that holds pretty true, and I've had a lot of success with PMP being online. Now, ITDR specific things, CISSP, CISM, anything in that category of cyber or whatever domain stuff, like I have Security Plus and CASP, it's going to hurt you if you're not applying to a DR specific role. So take it off if they aren't asking for it. Say you have, Russell, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So I've just been listening in here, silent observing. But what are your thoughts on, as you have multiple roles within your career, right? One of the things that, as I was looking for a job and going through the job market 4 years ago, a recruiter gave me a really good tip, and that was that as you're showing your transition in roles, add a bullet point on why you transition from this role to the next.
That's not a bad
It
idea.
lets the recruiter know that, hey, I left this position because I wanted career advancement, or whatever the case may be. It just shows that career progression. And as soon as I made that, it started opening a lot of doors that I don't know if the systems that the companies that use those computer systems to vet resumes based on keywords. It was getting past that gatekeeper on to the recruiter. So
I think that actually is pretty valuable, and it also adds to the fact of if, like, say I'm working with Ryan and my contract's 18 months, but I'm trying to get out because it just doesn't have that value to me. It's going to look bad that I was only there 3 months and then transition over. But if I say, hey, I needed that job security, then it's going to make sense to them.
Right.
But that's a really good point. I think it adds value. I would say I would call it good filler. It's not an absolute necessary item. I would put it in the role at the bottom here, offset, and I would put it in there if you want to add that, or maybe you could put it in a bracket after something if you have room in there. But you might not have room if you're really trying to showcase yourself, so then it would go back to that filler category. But it does add value. I think it's good. It's a good filler. So along those lines of good filler and bad filler, that is good filler. Thank you for that comment. So let's go back to the DR specific. When we're looking at this DR specific stuff, if you have a CISM and they're asking for a CISM, or say you have Sec Plus, it's the industry equivalent of CISM. It's just a different provider. So if you want to get past those systems or those questions, you see how I put it down there, CompTIA Sec Plus, that's the one I have, that I say CISM equivalent. If I'm talking to someone that's like CBI, what's the other one, the DRI, the kid's sister, BCIC. So if I have a BCIC friend, I'm going to tell them, hey, make yourself BCIC, DRI, CBCP equivalent. Because they know the stuff, they don't have the fancy cert. So I don't want them to like get kicked out of the pool because they didn't have the CBCP standard. They could talk it in the interview like, hey, you know, we're not the best. It was cheaper. We're the kid's sister, but I still know how to do BC. So that's the kind of things that you got to look at when if your certification kind of matches some of those certification, make sure you don't get kicked out by that auto tracking system, or you know, leave it somewhere you can talk about it in an interview later on, but get into the interview. That's the important thing. So sometimes relevant. If you're looking at ITIL 4, that's change management, IT service management kind of stuff. I've seen it requested or preferred on post. So I would put it when it's requested or preferred, but I wouldn't put it if it wasn't. Same for Lean Six Sigma, manufacturing industry, pretty specific, but if it's not, I wouldn't put it. FEMA, it's not a certification, it's just a, you know, a training you did, but sometimes they ask for that. I would say it's almost always relevant, but you know, you might hurt yourself if they're really not into that strict regimented standards, kind of like that crisis management. Hey, this person really loves being in the public sector. Maybe I don't want them. So it's something you would, you know, it's up to you if you want to put that in there. But
the thing is, what I would say, Daniel, is if they ask for, you know, saying, hey, we'd like to see the FEMA or the CBCPs, put it down there. But the one thing that both city, state, and government agencies look for is the business practitioner. You heard the word practitioner, right? So they have what's called a level 1 and level 2 practitioner, or master continuity practitioner, or a level 1 practitioner. Those are key words that, just like Trish is saying, that's keywords that I'm looking for. And I'll tell you, you should be putting those down if you're looking for a city, state, or local job. If they're asking for it, use those words specifically.
So one last thing in this domain, before we move on to questions, I want to say that we have, say I have an MBA I'm working on, but I haven't finished it yet, or maybe I'm gonna do my PMP. So I'll do a PMP candidate 2025, MBA, whatever school, university 2025. They know it's not 2025 yet. They're gonna understand, and then it probably gets you in the door at least to talk, and they'll say, well, you know, at least maybe I'll pay this person a little bit less, but they, you know, they're still going to be skilled or have that. They're pursuing these things actively. Watch out if they don't want an MBA, if they don't want an MA, if they don't want a doctorate, don't put it on there. They don't want a smart person in their office doing, you know, too smart. Like I actually had the current one, the hiring manager. He was like, I don't want someone walking around saying, "Call me doctor." So he wouldn't hire anyone that was a doctor because he didn't want to have to call him doctor. He asked me, he's like, "Are you going to hold your MBA over me?" I'm like, "It's just education. I just have it. I'm not like, you know, I'm not going to put it on my title or anything. I just, you know, I'm here to do awesome things. I love doing BC. So I'm not like that." But that gets in hiring managers' heads. They're very specific. So maybe don't put it on your resume if they don't ask for it. If they're asking for a 4-year, give them a BA, MA maybe. If they're asking for an MA, give them an MA. But you could see in those roles, you know, dumb yourself down a little bit, get in the door, get the job. Don't get kicked out for being too cool. All right, let's go on to questions. So I think I'm sorry I only left 5 minutes, but there's a lot to unpack here. And I will definitely stay on longer for anyone that has questions to ask as well. And, well, let me double check to make sure I'm next on my calendar. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so I remember Alan telling us in training to avoid saying that we were military, to use the words DOD. Is that what we want to use throughout if we've done like 20 years and whatnot?
Okay, I would call that under the original category of opinions. And you got to really look at the hiring person you're on. So some corporations don't understand military, so they might not want that. You know, you might need to translate some of your military things. I've translated all my military terms to all civilian corporate. I call it business units. I don't call it battalions. I call myself under the DoD. So I fall under that set. I think it adds value. But some companies, like at least on my LinkedIn, I leave it Army because some people are in the military. And I've actually, the company that's considering right now for a job in New York for $250,000, the guy was like, I didn't really like your resume, but you were Army, so I got you in on the phone anyways. So it does add value.
And Steve, right. And I prefer, you know, obviously you're going to list whatever branch of service you're in should always be listed under your experience. But corporations do not understand what DoD is. I mean, and so if you worked, when I say I worked for the DoD, which is the Department of Defense, that was when I was stationed at the Pentagon, and I worked for the Joint Chiefs. That was DoD work. If you're applying to Northrop Grumman or you're applying to Jet Propulsion, you could say DoD, but spell it out. Do not use acronyms. Businesses do not understand acronyms in any way, shape, or form. That will kick your resume immediately because they think it's because a lot of times it's because of the security or the antivirus software thinks that it's Greek lettering, and so it's a trigger for spam.
Okay.
And the same
thank you.
thing when I filled
Appreciate
out mine, Stephen, was I put NASA JPL, and that was a big mistake for me. And I had to spell out National Aeronautics Space Administration Jet
Yep.
Propulsion Laboratory.
it.
Then I put parentheses NASA JPL.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't spell it out, people are like, oh, and the first thing they think of, hey, he's an engineer. I'm like,
Correct.
who? And they're like, nope. And then I had to put down my job title and everything else. So I totally agree with Trish.
Okay, awesome. And another quick question, will you share this this meeting with us?
I am sharing it right now, actually. It's going to be
Awesome.
a recording, and I just sent a link in the chat, so if you can grab that link. Keith will send it back out to everyone as well. I'm going to upload those files. So I will put a BC sample resume. If you want my resume, you can just find me on LinkedIn and I'll send you a copy of it so you can see it. This is kind of a breakdown. I split it out a little bit. So I've added the professional practices 2023, the resume sample on a docx, and this slide deck is in here as well. So it's the VC resume PPT. You'll see there's other meetings in there. So we had Robert Arco before and Lisa from USAA. So Robert Arco was Microsoft, and now this one will be in here. We recorded this session, and if you want to see those, just go to the chat. Any other questions?
There's one thing that I could say that you hit on, Daniel, that I thought was really valuable. You know, the different process of applying for a job, you know, putting your job out there on LinkedIn. If you're serious about a job and it's like your number one pick, I would not click on that apply now. I would go into, you know, the actual company website and take your time to fill it out, add the cover letter, do all the additional things, you know, because it kind of sets the tone how serious you are as an applicant, right? Versus just clicking apply button. It's like that takes like less than a second, right? You could just go down and go through 20 jobs and say click, 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 apply, apply, apply. The second portion that I thought was really important was, you know, network and get the inside track on your resume. Don't be afraid to find that organization, who works in that organization and close to that team, and say, you know, I noticed that you had a job posting for, you know, business continuity practitioner, whatever, manager in your company. I'd like to know more about, you know, about this role. Could you walk me through what this might look like? Tell me more about your organization, something like that. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that in companies, people get big bonuses for referrals. So they're going to want to tell you all about that job and then tell you, you know, take your resume and forward it on to the hiring manager, because if you get picked up, there's a good chance that they're going to get a $5,000 or $10,000 bonus for that. Not that they're not good people. I'm just saying, you know, that is the quickest way to get, you know, an actual person to look at that resume versus, you know, your resume sitting on a stack of 200 applicants that could just get lost in the mix. So again, that, you know, Daniel just highlighted on something really important there, really valuable. So hopefully that helps.
So one other thing, I just posted, I wanted to encapsulate one thing. What, how, and wow. This is classic military writing, resumes and performance evaluations. What you did, how you did it, and wow them with it. The impact that it did on the organization. It's the most important thing. If you can communicate that every way through there. My resume went from not getting seen to the KBR hiring manager saying, "Hey, what rank are you?" And I was like, "I'm a sergeant first class." He was like, "I thought you were a full bird colonel," because the what, how, and the wow. It shows you that big player. I just posted a link to my LinkedIn post specific on how to craft your bullets like that. Please check that out if you want. Also, we have, once again, that Google Drive. This will be recorded, so if you want to jump back there and see the recording, if you came in late and you want to get the rest of it. We have another raised hand.
Oh.
Who had the, was it Ronnie?
Yes. My question about reaching out to people within the company. Are you talking about like on LinkedIn, maybe?
Yeah. So what I do, here's my tactic, and you can steal this. I went to the Fortune 500 list. I pulled the entire list down, and I was like, I like this company. So I went and I said, hey, Google, CVS Health, Business Continuity Director, LinkedIn, and then boom, I find Sarah Smith. I hit Sarah Smith and say, hey, I'm a retiring military. I was checking out CVS Health's website, check out business continuity program, researching the company for future companies. And I saw your profile. I thought you're really experienced and have a lot of value to add. Would you mind doing a coffee, virtual coffee for some mentorship? Boom, she comes back. She says, hey, how about an internship? Robert Arco was like, yeah, I got time. We start talking. Now I bring him in here. Guy Ragusa from Goldman Sachs, same thing. Someone else at a different company, I think it was Bank, or it was a United Healthcare. The guy told me about passion. He's like, I got my job because I was passionate. I was like, wow, you know, passion. I'm gonna add that to my branding. And then it changed everything for me. So doing that, reaching out to those people, it not only gets you in the door, but it also teaches you things. It's really important. And you can get these exceptional mentors. The BC community is very welcoming. They will reach out and they'll talk to you. I haven't once had someone say, hey, why are you talking to me? You're annoying. They always were like, either they ignored me, which is very rare, or they were like, yeah, let's make some time. Shoot me a link, or do you want me to shoot you a link?
Thank you.
But don't ask them for a job. That's annoying. Just say, hey, let's do some mentorship. I think you're awesome. You know, hype them up. Do you have any other questions?
All right, thanks, Daniel. Awesome job.
Yeah, my LinkedIn's down there. If you want to reach out and connect with me, I always make time to help people out and you know, guide them along the way. And it's my pleasure to come out and teach this subject, share my knowledge. I got this knowledge from great people. So don't just hold on to this, share it to the next person, teach them, get your veteran population up there, get them in the BC field, and get them jobs. That's the important thing. So share this knowledge like I'm sharing it. And thank you everyone for sticking around and watching this.
Thank you. Really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Daniel.